This is Maple Blues.
Welcome to the Maple Blues Podcast, the podcast where we talk about the NHL, the St. Louis Blues, the Toronto Maple Leafs, and other things hockey. I'm Penguin Oat.
And I'm Charlie ND.
Welcome back to episode 2. We have a few things to talk about today, in particular the trade deadline, but we've got some appetizers first. Charlie, you had something you wanted to talk about first, so the floor is yours.
All right, well, it just so happened that today, the area I live got rocked by a 4.4 earthquake at about 5 in the morning. And the reason I bring this up is because the last earthquake we got happened to be when we recorded our first episode. So I just thought that was kind of a wild coincidence that I got 2 earthquakes on the days we were recording. And yeah, it was decently alarming. Like at around 5 in the morning, just everything in my bedroom just started shaking like for 20 or so seconds. But I just thought that was a bit of a funny coincidence. But getting more into hockey here, we are getting back in the swing of things with the regular season going on. You actually went to a game fairly recently, so you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I was at the Blues game last Tuesday when they were playing the Seattle Kraken. I went with my dad and my uncle, who is a season ticket holder. It was a great game. The Blues absolutely demolished the Kraken 7-2. They were up 7-0 at one point. Would have been 8-2, but there was a disallowed goal. But it was a great game. I had a really good time. Yeah, it was probably the best game I've seen this far. And so that makes my record this year at games at 2-3-1. I've been to 6 games so far this year. And as of now, I'm going to 1 more in April. So hopefully I can get my record to 500. But yeah, went to the Blues game. They won. They've been on a really good stretch so far since the Four Nations break. They did lose their last game pretty bad to the Stars, but the Stars kind of got lucky-ish. But yeah, I'm a bit more confident about the Blues now in their last few games, and yeah.
Yeah, both of our teams have been on kind of a heater lately. Let me just say, you picked a great game to go to. Like, your team that's been, like, struggling all season put up 7 goals. Like, that is crazy. You got super lucky. But, yeah, the Blues, they strung together some wins. The Leafs have been mostly undefeated since the Four Nations break until a few minutes ago when they lost in a shootout to the last in the league, San Jose Sharks. And that was one of the most ridiculous games I have seen in recent memory. That was just completely embarrassing. But aside from that, they're kind of doing okay. They're first in their division, so I guess that counts for something. But there's definitely some problems they need to address, which I'll talk a bit later when we get into trade deadline talks. But before that, I wanted to ask, did you watch the Stadium Series?
Unfortunately, I did not. I had to work that night, but I did see some clips. I did see that the Blue Jackets came out onto the ice with the Gaudreau family, which was an awesome tribute. I also saw that they brought out the cannon to Ohio Stadium, and that I believe they had the marching band play the Blue Jackets goal song after goals, so that was also cool. But I didn't see it. I didn't catch any of it. I was at work, but I did see some clips, and it did look cool, and I'm glad the Blue Jackets got an outdoor game for the first time in their history.
Yeah, well, it was definitely a game to watch. You're completely right about the Gaudreau family tribute. Like, that was spectacular. Obviously, the hockey world was devastated when we lost Johnny Gaudreau and his brother. So to see the team paying tribute to him, inviting his family out during the Stadium Series, that was just fantastic to see. And the game itself was amazing. It was the second most attended NHL game in history. And, you know, for the Blue Jackets, who for many NHL fans are an afterthought, to have this huge moment, it's got to be so special for that organization. Considering everything that's gone on with them during the offseason, I think it is good they're making a push for the playoffs, and personally, I hope they make it. It would be great to see them in, and honestly, just a great game all around. Atmosphere was great. The crowd was just amazing. And I think the NHL did well with this stadium series. I've been saying for a long time, I would love to see an outdoor game between the Blue Jackets and Red Wings, just to obviously parallel the rivalry between Ohio State and Michigan. And it's kind of cool that both of those universities have now had an NHL game in their football stadiums. And the Red Wings lost in both of those games, weirdly enough. But yeah, the Blue Jackets went up 3-1. And then the Red Wings came back to tie it, but the Blue Jackets took the lead again and deposited the empty netter. And overall, it was a great night in Columbus.
Speaking of rivalry, I remember that it feels like a long time ago, the Blue Jackets and the Red Wings were both in the Central Division, and they were both division rivals. They were in the same division as the Blues. It kind of feels like it was a while ago, but it's not really that long ago. It's only 12 years since that division alignment. But yeah, from what I saw, the Stadium Series was awesome. Good for the fans in Columbus, and I do also hope the Blue Jackets make the playoffs. It'd be a great tribute for Johnny Hockey, and it'd be great for the fifth line in Columbus.
Absolutely. And every hockey fan has been thinking about Johnny Gaudreau all season long, and it would really just be great to see them in the playoffs for him. That's basically all I have to say about the Stadium Series, unless there's anything else you want to bring up before we get into trade deadline talks. I think we could maybe talk a bit about that and what we hope to see from our teams in the trade deadline.
The only real thing with Stadium Series is that I saw a bit that there was some talks with Gary Bettman or someone close to him that Utah is in the running for an outdoor game soon. I can't remember who it was, but they did say that Utah could get an outdoor game really soon. So yeah, just to be on the lookout for that either in 2026 or not 2026, in 2027, because 2026 is going to Tampa, but keep an eye out for an outdoor game in Utah.
All right, then. Well, that'll be amazing to see. It's kind of uncommon, at least in the old days, it used to be uncommon that a team would get an outdoor game so early in their existence, but I guess times have been changing here. So with that out of the way, is there anything you would like to say in particular about the St. Louis Blues and what you hope to see from them going into the trade deadline as we enter the final stretch of the regular season here?
Oh man, if you were to ask me this when we did our first episode, I honestly would have been in light sell mode, offload Braden Shen, maybe see what kind of return you could get for him. But after this recent stretch, I think the Blues, their best choice would just be to stand pat and do nothing. I have heard there are constant rumors about Toronto wanting to get Braden Shen, and it's mainly because Braden Shen could be reunited with Craig Berube in Toronto, but honestly now, since the Blues are winning again and consistently, I think their next game on Wednesday against the Kings will decide what they do. I'm going to say they stand pat, which I think they'll probably do nothing except maybe one light move. But besides that, what I want is the Blues to stand pat. What I think they're going to do is probably stand pat, and I think they're going to try to make a push for the playoffs.
Well, when we recorded our first episode, I was not very high on the Blues' chances of making the playoffs, but with all the wins they've been racking up here, I wouldn't be surprised if they managed to sneak in. The West is wide open. You got the Canucks, who have been sort of struggling lately, and I'll talk a bit about them later as well. The Flames are kind of on and off. The Ducks, they've been making a push too, but they've lost some games they probably could have won.
And Utah is just in the mix as well, but yeah, I guess those are the four teams. Anaheim's hanging on by a thread, but yeah, it's probably just those four teams that are fighting for the last playoff spot.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see who gets in. So, I want to talk a bit about my team. I will be honest, like I said in the last episode, the only reason the Leafs are as high up in the standings as they are is because of their goaltending. I am happy with their goalie tandem. I like Stolarz, I like Wall. I mean, Wall's game against the Penguins the other day wasn't his best, but overall he's been solid throughout the season. So, in regards to what the Maple Leafs are going to do towards the trade deadline. It's been pretty well documented that depth down the middle is probably not the best for the Leafs. They probably want to get another center. You mentioned earlier Brayden Schenn from the St. Louis Blues. I would not be opposed to Brayden Schenn on the team by any means. He's won a Stanley Cup, but there are a few players on the Leafs who I would absolutely not want to give up for him. Like, I would not want to give up Nyes. I would not want to give up Domi. I would prefer if they stay on the team. But as things stand now, like with that loss against the Sharks just a few minutes ago, that was just unacceptable. I don't have faith that the Leafs will be able to get past the Panthers. And I'm going off the assumption that they're going to meet the Panthers in the second round, which might not happen, but if it does, I think the Panthers are overall a more well-rounded team, and I don't think goaltending alone is going to be enough to take down the big bad Panthers, as they've started to gain a reputation. And we need to get more depth on the blue line, down the middle. That's what we need. Brayden Schenn would be okay with that. So yeah, maybe another center. That's all I can hope for as far as the Leafs are concerned. But yeah, any other teams or players you think we should be watching out for going into the trade deadline here?
I was going to mention other teams, but with Toronto, I thought there was a rumor that they might look at trying to bring back Ryan O'Reilly. It's a possibility since Nashville is, a mess, and they're probably going to be looking at getting more assets. Like, they just made a trade on Saturday with Minnesota, getting a second-round pick in 2026 for Gustav Nyquist. So, I think besides them, I think maybe O'Reilly could possibly be an option for Toronto, but that's about it. In terms of teams to watch, I would say the real contenders this year: Winnipeg, Washington, Florida, Edmonton, Vegas, Dallas. I guess all the teams that are at the top of their divisions. Yeah, those are honestly the teams to look out for. Maybe even Minnesota, since they've been surprisingly good this year. They're a team to watch as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Minnesota. They, like you said, they just made a trade with the Predators for Gustav Nyquist. So that's a good addition for them. Other important trades that have happened recently: Spencer Knight to the Chicago Blackhawks from the Florida Panthers, along with a 2026 first-round pick. I think that's definitely helpful for the Hawks. They are obviously in the trenches of their rebuild, so getting those picks is definitely going to help them down the line. And from what I've seen from Spencer Knight, he has been solid in net, and they definitely got a good goalie. So good trade for the Blackhawks. I also want to talk a little bit about the Vancouver Canucks, particularly Elias Pettersson. Now, over the last few months, literally everyone I know who is a Canucks fan has been complaining about this guy like nonstop, and it's not hard to see why. Let me see if I can pull up some of his stats here. All right, so through 54 games, he has scored 11 goals and had 24 assists, and he's -9. And I know I don't really like using plus minus as an important stat for forwards, but you got to keep in mind, this is a guy who's like being paid $11 million a year. $11,600,000 a year. He's in year one of an 8-year contract. And so the fact that he's like barely putting up any numbers, that has got to be like a huge shot to the Canucks. They've gone from division winners to a wild card team, and now a guy they're paying big bucks is like barely performing. And I don't even know, like, what do you even do from there? Like, what are they even going to attempt to do?
I was going to say, I do remember also seeing some posts from a Canucks meme account on Instagram, how they made one whole post basically lampooning Elias Pettersson, how he's been declining. I honestly don't know what exactly is going on in Vancouver, because I still remember the Elias Pettersson, JT Miller conundrum that happened earlier, and then JT Miller got shipped to the Rangers. So I feel like with the Canucks, they're honestly interesting. For me, I'm really interested in what could take them down, because one less team in the hunt means an easier chance for the Blues in the playoffs. But I am kind of fascinated in the Canucks as well.
I would also be remiss if I didn't mention Dylan Cousins. There is a very good chance that the Buffalo Sabres trade Dylan Cousins, and I'm actually just reading Sportsnet's article on him right here. So, 11 goals, 30 points, and 58 games. He is in the second year of a 7-year contract. He's not quite getting paid the same amount as Pettersson, but he's still getting paid $7.1 million a year. You know, there is a lot of speculation towards where he can land. Obviously, Buffalo, if you're a hockey fan, the Sabres need no introduction. They have not made the playoffs since 2011, and the reason I bring that up right after the Canucks is because there is some speculation that the Canucks have talked to the Sabres about potentially landing Dylan Cousins. You know, maybe a change of scene might be good for Cousins and Pettersson. And like I said, these are two players that are getting paid big bucks, not exactly scoring as much as their fans have maybe wanted them to. So I think both those teams might be looking to offload those players. And like you said, with the Blues trying to make a playoffs push, you must be like celebrating Pettersson's downfall right about now.
Well, I wouldn't exactly be celebrating his downfall, although I also have heard, I know what I was going to mention with the Canucks, I know that both Quinn Hughes and I think Canucks ownership both don't want to rebuild, so I don't think they'll be tearing it down. Although your idea of some formation of a Pettersson for Cousins deal, I don't know if the Canucks would accept that unless they get a good return. So all I could think is the Canucks might be panicking, trying to find some desperation, because I feel like they made another trade before, or maybe it was the Flames, but I know the Canucks are panicking. The Flames, they could potentially be a team to look at, or they might just do nothing. I feel like that's probably what's going to happen with those 4 teams on the bubble. I think Calgary, Vancouver, St. Louis, and Utah all do nothing and just stick to what they have and try to push for that last wildcard spot.
All right. And going back to Dylan Cousins here, there was also some speculation that he might go to the Leafs. And like I said earlier, the Leafs would definitely be in the market for another center. And the Leafs actually do not have a first-round pick. So I'm just reading from Sportsnet's website here. They're going to have to rely on like prospects or roster players to try and like get a deal for Dylan Cousins. I'm not really sure. I would be totally hot on Dylan Cousins coming to the Leafs, but you know, change of scene, that can be great for players. We've seen that happen. Like just a random example here. Matt Murray, he was a Stanley Cup champion. Then he went to the Ottawa Senators. He wasn't doing so hot, and then he went to the Leafs, and then he started playing a lot better. And one other thing, going back to what you said about the Canucks not wanting to rebuild, that has been a theme for so long now. And it's part of the reason they went so long without making the playoffs. You know, they started to show some resurgence in the pandemic season, but then it crumbled again. And then in 2024, they looked strong, but, you know, not having their first string goalie in the playoffs kind of killed their chances of the cup. But yeah, that's just been a theme for them. Their ownership just, for whatever reason, does not want to rebuild. And I'm assuming that's because they're afraid of not getting people to games, but I don't really think that's a huge worry because, like, Vancouver's a pretty strong hockey market. I mean, maybe they might not sell out, but, like, every game will be at least, like, I'd say 90% full. So I think their hesitance to rebuild has just been a killer for them. And it was also a killer for previous teams like the Coyotes. And yeah, they're definitely gonna have to try and figure something out here. And this Pedersen situation is just not helping them at all.
Yeah, I was gonna say with Vancouver's owner Francesco Aquilini, I feel like he's definitely a more of a very aggressive, I know what I'm doing type of person, where he thinks what he's doing is right. Because keep in mind, from I think it was like a few years ago, he's paying 3 different coaches because I believe he's paying a severance for Travis Green and Bruce Boudreau, and currently Rick Tocchet. So yeah, I feel like the Canucks owner Francesco Aquilini might be meddling in a little bit, trying to make sure his ideas and way to run the team are happening. But yeah, the Canucks there's a good chance they miss the playoffs this year. I honestly wouldn't be surprised, but it would be a massive disappointment. And yeah, Vancouver's a team to keep an eye on.
And yeah, going back to Cousins here, the Red Wings, another team that is speculated to maybe land Cousins. I don't think it's going to happen, but I think it is worth talking about nonetheless. The Red Wings. Where do I start with the Detroit Red Wings? One of the NHL's most prestigious franchises, a quarter century of consecutive seasons making the playoffs. And ever since 2016, they have just sort of faded into irrelevancy, which was once unthinkable for this team. And since then, they've been embarking on the Iser plan, trying to get back to those glory days. And it's been 9 years since they've last been in the playoffs. They might make it this year, but like in the West, it's very tight in the East. You have teams like the Senators, the Rangers, the Habs are still kind of in it, and of course the Blue Jackets who are ahead of them. And of course it doesn't help being in a division with the Lightning, the Panthers, and the Leafs. And the Red Wings fan base is starting to get a bit restless. Like I said, they want results. This is a city that is used to hockey championships, and to go this long without making the playoffs is just completely unexcusable for them. And yeah, it has been rumored that Cousins might go to the Red Wings. They've definitely shown interest in him. I don't think they're going to land him, but that is another team to watch out for. And, you'll never know what the Red Wings might try. They want to get back in the playoffs, so expect something from them in the coming days.
Yeah, speaking of the Red Wings, well, they are that team. The game I'm going to is on April 1st. I'll see the Blues play the Red Wings. But speaking of the Red Wings, I remember in late November, or was it late December, seeing the Blues play the Red Wings, and the Blues outmatched them the whole time. And since the Red Wings fired their head coach, they have been completely different. They too have been making a push. I also agree, I don't think the Red Wings would get Dylan Cousins, but I feel like the Red Wings, they're in the hunt. The Eastern Conference is a bit more tight, and it's every man for himself, but the West, at least the second wild card, it's just a game of hot potato. Who wants to face Winnipeg in the first round? But yeah, the Red Wings, they may not get Dylan Cousins, but they might look at getting a smaller addition for a less than huge return, but they might look at lightly buying.
One more team I also want to mention here, the Nashville Predators. And wow, every season there's always that one big disappointment, and this year that team was undoubtedly the Nashville Predators. This is a team that going into this season, many people had at least finishing in a wild card spot or something. And they're sitting, actually let me pull up the standings here real quick. They are sitting third last in the Western Conference, 21, 32, and 7, good for 49 points. This is just a team that expected so much more. Another team that's trying to land Dylan Cousins, they have Ryan O'Reilly, like you mentioned earlier. And just a side tangent here, I loved Ryan O'Reilly as a Leaf. I sort of maybe used to make fun of him before he came to the team, but once he joined the Leafs, his impact was definitely felt. I loved his playing style. He had good physicality. He could score. And honestly, I just thought he was like just a solid addition to the team. So, we could see the Nashville Predators offering up Ryan O'Reilly to the Buffalo Sabres. I don't know how exactly that would play out for either team. I think that might benefit the Sabres more if that went through, but I don't know. What do you think of that?
Well, speaking of Nashville, I was actually in Nashville in July of last year for my vacation. I remember my hotel was like a block away from Bridgestone Arena. I could see it outside my window. And all the time, they had this big sign. They were flashing the "Welcome to Smashville." It had Stamkos, Marchessault, Shea, and I think one other big signing. But there was this part of me that was thinking, all those players are pretty old, and they might be declining. There was that part of me that thought that was going to happen, and I guess my conscience was right with how the Predators have been this year. And yeah, they might be a team that'll just looking at selling whatever they can, whatever isn't tied down to a no trade clause or no movement clause. That's the best they can do for now, and see what Barry Trotz does in this offseason, because he's either going to throw another coin into the slot machine or decide to tear it all down. I honestly don't know what the Predators should do. I'm no expert in hockey management. Neither of us are. But yeah, Nashville's a team certainly for the offseason, they're a team to keep an eye on. Certainly from how they recover from this blemish of a season.
Well, you're definitely lucky you got to go to Nashville, first of all. Like, that is definitely a destination I've had on my mind in general, but especially like from a hockey standpoint, I feel like going to an away game there would be so fun. And your gut feeling about, some of these guys like Stamkos declining, that was definitely true. So I got Steven Stamkos, his Hockey DB page pulled up here. He is coming off a season where he played 79 games, 40 goals, which is definitely respectable, 41 assists, and minus 21, but again, I don't think plus minus is that important when we're talking about forwards. But this year, through 60 games played, he has just 17 goals. Like, the decline is just insane. That's unfortunate for me because, with Tampa Bay Lightning in my team's division, they shed off some of that weight. And unfortunately, they've been surging lately. I think they've won 8 in a row at the time we're recording this. They didn't play today, I'm pretty sure. Oh, no, they did play today. I'm wrong. They played the Florida Panthers, and they lost 2-1 in regulation. Okay, that's good then. That's really good, because, I do not want the Lightning to gain momentum. Sure, you could argue they've been declining, but I don't think they've been declining very fast. I think they're still a very scary team. But, yeah, good for Tampa Bay that they got rid of him, but, Nashville is seriously paying the price. They very well could rebound. I think they could still rebound, sort of like how the Devils have been having a rebound season this year. I think the Predators very well could have a rebound season if they play their cards right, but this is probably a huge hit to them. That's basically all I could say about the Nashville Predators in regards to everything that they could possibly have done or are doing.
And since we're talking about trades, another trade I want to talk about is the Seth Jones trade, because from what I just saw earlier, the Blackhawks won their game, and Spencer Knight was in goal, and so yeah, I want to talk about that since that was a trade. I thought it came out of nowhere. I thought Seth Jones was stuck in Chicago, but yeah, as of now, I think the Blackhawks might have kind of won that trade, but we don't know entirely. We can't judge a trade after it immediately happens. We have to wait and let it gestate.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, but like I said before, I think Chicago really got the good end of this deal. Spencer Knight, great trade for him. He's a great goalie. As for Seth Jones, he'll probably be happy to be on a team that's actually contending for a Stanley Cup. He hasn't had the greatest numbers in recent years, but, I think he could potentially make an impact on the Florida Panthers. And Obviously, I don't really want that come playoffs time, but I think that generally speaking, if I had to declare a winner for that trade, I think it would definitely be Chicago. I think it helps them in the short term, and I think it also helps them in the future.
There is this part of me that feels like Seth Jones will do a bit better in Florida since he is going to be part of a better defense than in Chicago. That's my gut feeling again. I mean, I was right about Nashville underachieving, so maybe my gut feeling will be right, and Seth Jones has not exactly a return to form like in Columbus, but he'll show improvement with better defensive line mates. And in terms of Spencer Knight, I honestly thought he might struggle a bit since he's in a weaker defensive system, but I mean, I could be wrong, but that's just what I think as of now.
All right, well, speaking of the Panthers, I think the odds of them going back to the finals this year are more than good. We are looking at a team that has Matthew Tkachuk, who has started to become a bit hated around the league, especially during the Four Nations. He is not exactly well liked, but you know what? They don't boo nobodies. Matthew Tkachuk, let me tell you, he is putting up some numbers. Last year, he played 80 games, scored 26 goals. This year, he has played 52 games so far with 22 goals. So he is on pace to beat his scoring number from last season. And generally speaking, he plays with a sort of physicality that a lot of people don't like. He is one of those guys who you hate unless he is on your team. And unfortunately, my team might have to go through him and the Florida Panthers, which, like I said, is why we really need another center, hopefully. If we have another center who can help our goalies who have been phenomenal, we might have a chance against the Panthers, but this is definitely not a team to be slept on. I would give them the edge over the Leafs in a series right now. I don't know if I would over the Capitals, though, but definitely over the Leafs. And they are poised to make another deep run. And something interesting I found out about the Panthers the other day. 3 of the top 4 draft picks in the 2014 NHL draft, Aaron Ekblad, Sam Reinhart, Leon Draisaitl, Sam Bennett, 3 of those 4 guys actually ended up playing for the Florida Panthers. Florida actually had the first overall pick that year, and they chose Ekblad. Reinhart went to the Sabres. Draisaitl went to the Oilers, where he still is, and lost to the Panthers. And Bennett got selected by the Flames. And props to these Panthers. They went from irrelevancy to Cup champions in a relatively short amount of time. So now they're sort of becoming the nightmare for teams in the Eastern Conference and especially the Atlantic Division. Well played by them. They're definitely a team to look out for. And with me saying that, I want to ask, given everything we know right now, and barring any changes by any blockbuster trades, who do you think is the most likely finals matchup scenario?
Ooh, as of now, I'm gonna say I'm terrible at predictions, so if I'm gonna try my best, I'm gonna say Jets Capitals, only because it would be those 2 teams I think are the most complete. It would be honestly kind of ironic because it would be a former Southeast Division rivalry, the Capitals and Thrashers. It would be the U.S. Capital versus the smallest Canadian market, and I feel like both of those 2 teams have been surprising this year, so it would only make sense that the 2 surprise teams that are very complete meet up in the finals.
That's a good prediction, I'd say. Now, keep in mind, don't feel bad if that prediction ends up not happening because, again, the trade deadline has not happened, and generally, when it comes to momentum in the playoffs, recent regular season is better than early regular season. But, yeah, I totally think that's a good prediction right now. The Jets in particular, oh man, they have just been on a tear. They are through 61 games, and they're already guaranteed a winning record. They've won 42 games, so more than half throughout the whole season. But, there's always that President's Trophy curse. Although I don't really believe in curses. Like, I think that's just purely coincidence. But if I had to pick a finals matchup right now, this is going to be a bit of a wild guess here, but I'm going to say Golden Knights and Capitals. I think the Golden Knights have what it takes to go to the finals once again. And again, I could be wrong. They could be first round exits for all I know, but from right now, given how random hockey can be at times, I think Golden Knights and Capitals is my official guess in this pre-trade deadline era.
Oh god, the Golden Knights in another cup final? Well, if that cup final did happen, well, I think most of us would be Capitals fans, but Capitals are, yes, they're definitely... We both think they're a lock for the Eastern Conference. That's honestly what I think the Eastern Conference final would be. It would be Panthers versus Capitals. The West, though, is kind of wide open. It could be the Jets. It could be the Golden Knights. It could be someone neither of us have listed. It could be someone that comes out of nowhere. But yeah, both of our predictions as of now are both solid picks. But the official trade deadline hasn't happened, and the complete wave at the last minute where all teams make desperate moves has not happened either. So that's also something to keep in mind. But yeah.
I'll tell you what, we're probably going to make a playoffs edition episode once, the playoff spots are locked. And I can't wait for that, by the way. That's my favorite part of the regular season. It's making playoffs predictions. So I'm going to re-ask you that question later on once the playoff spots are all locked. But while we're on the topic of the Capitals, Alex Ovechkin, he is getting very close to breaking Wayne Gretzky's scoring record. I think that's one of the biggest stories of this whole NHL season, because keep in mind, for so long Wayne Gretzky was thought to be untouchable. We're talking about a guy who scored at an insane pace, 1983 1984 Edmonton Oilers season, 87 goals. That's insane. Nowadays, if a player comes close to 65 goals, that's considered remarkable. He had a 92 goal season just a few seasons prior to that. This guy scored goals at a pace that was unimaginable. There's a reason they call him the Great One. So the fact that Alex Ovechkin is actually even remotely close to catching him is insane to me. So we're looking at Ovechkin at 884 goals. Wayne Gretzky in the NHL, 894 goals. He's 10 away. Let that sink in. Alex Ovechkin is 10 goals away.
Well, there's a very good chance that Ovi breaks that record. If he keeps scoring at a goal per game pace, he breaks that record this month. So in terms of points, he is not catching Gretzky, because Ovi has, as of now, 1,600 total points, or somewhere around that range, and Gretzky's at 2,857, so points he's not going to catch, but goals he very well could. I feel as long as Ovechkin doesn't have a game like he did against the Blues a week ago, he could very well break Gretzky's goal record. And yeah, I feel that's achievable for Ovi, and yeah.
Keep in mind, he is not showing necessarily any signs of declining, because he scored a hat-trick against the Oilers the other day. That is not easy to do. Granted, I don't think the Oilers are the best team in terms of goaltending, but to put up 3 against a team that has cup aspirations like the Oilers, that is no small feat, and it's going to be a huge deal when Ovi finally breaks through and catches Gretzky. Knock on wood, obviously. Nothing's set in stone, but I think it's just amazing we're living through this right now.
Yeah, funny you mentioned the Oilers. I remember, it was also when the Blues were kind of slumping, that I saw this ridiculous rumor that the Oilers and I think also the Hurricanes might be interested in trading for Binnington. I thought it was ridiculous, and it was not going to happen, and it's not going to happen. But yeah, the Oilers, they're built on high-end talent. They're built on McDavid, Draisaitl, and a few other role players, and Zach Hyman, and other players coming out of nowhere and having clutch performances. But yeah, the Oilers are all high-end talent. But yeah, back to Ovechkin. It's great that it's happening right now. It's giving hockey more attention right after Four Nations face-off. And yeah, it's great publicity to help grow the game and get more eyeballs on the sport of hockey.
Absolutely. And I think we should go in depth about, NHL marketing itself in a future episode. But like you said about the Oilers, they are absolutely built on high-end talent. But I really think that goaltending is a weak spot for them, which is part of the reason I think the Golden Knights, at the very least, could probably beat the Oilers to go to the conference finals. We're looking at a team whose goaltender is rocking an .898 save percentage over this season. He has 40 games played, and that is just their Achilles. I don't think Stuart Skinner is the guy you want if you want a chance of winning the Stanley Cup. That is something they should probably address, and I think if it wasn't for the fact that the Oilers have such a good record this year, that would probably be talked about more, but I think other teams in the West, like the Golden Knights and maybe the Jets, they're going to take advantage of that. I think if it comes to Jets versus Oilers in the conference finals, which I hope doesn't happen, but if it comes to that, I think the Jets easily take that series. Well, not easily, but I think goaltending is going to do the Oilers in this playoffs.
Honestly, it's most likely in the event that the Oilers they win the Pacific, I think they play Colorado, and I feel like Colorado has a good chance of knocking off Edmonton. But if Edmonton is second or third in the Pacific and they face LA, it's probably another easy win for the Oilers, and they would just complete the trend. The Oilers beat the Kings in 7 games. They beat them in 6 games, beat them in 5 games, and then they sweep them. So I feel like if Edmonton, either they had to make some move for a decent goaltender this deadline, or Stuart Skinner needs to get back into his original game that he had back in 2021-22. Because I remember from 3 years ago, he was decent, or at least better than Jack Campbell. But yeah, I feel like the Oilers, they either will do something or do nothing. It's most likely going to be a bunch of nothing, with some light moves and a whole lot of nothing this deadline.
Now, it's funny that you brought up the Kings, continuing their trend of losing to the Oilers in the playoffs, because I was thinking the exact same thing. Wouldn't it just be so poetic if they went lost in 7, lost in 6, lost in 5, and lost in 4, which, from an outside perspective, would be hilarious, but at the same time, it's the Kings are sort of where the Leafs were, I'd say, in 2020, where they're definitely good enough to contend for the playoffs, but now they're just stuck in this limbo where it's they don't seem to be getting any better. And that's gotta frustrate their fans. This is just something you don't want to see at all. Losing to the Oilers over and over again is just gotta be frustrating. They did make a trade recently. They got Joseph Sassoni. I don't know if I'm saying his name correctly. And they traded away Tyler Madden for Joseph Sassoni. Again, I'm so sorry if I'm saying his name wrong, but these are both AHLers, so they traded away one AHLer for another AHLer, and aside from that, they have just not been making any big moves lately, and that is definitely concerning if you're a Kings fan. You want this team to be making moves at the deadline, so watch for the Kings in the coming days. Hopefully they'll be making a trade at some point. I am going to talk a little bit about the Kings in a few minutes for something else, but anything else you want to say about them?
Funny you mentioned the Kings. The Blues, next 2 out of their 3 games are in Los Angeles against the Kings, so those are critical games for the Blues to win and for the Kings if they want to keep pace in the Pacific. I feel like the Kings have looked better than last year, where they had that second half skid and kind of tripped and limped into the playoffs, but they're better this year. But I feel like they might not be good enough. They face Vegas. Vegas has the advantage. If they face Edmonton also has the advantage. So if you're a Kings fan, you kind of, I don't know what you do. You're kind of a first round exit at best, unless the team turns the clock back to 2014.
Yeah, this is just not something you want to see for the Kings, being stuck in this limbo. So I would definitely hope to see them making moves in the coming days. And I gotta say, it's very weird that the Blues have the Kings twice in their upcoming schedule, because they just played them on the 1st, and then they went on the road to Dallas, and then they're going LA, Anaheim, LA again. That is very weird on the schedule maker's part, but hopefully they can build on the momentum that they got when they beat the Kings at home on the 1st. It would be good to see the Blues try to continue their push towards the playoffs here. If they could pick up 6 points in Southern California, which is very much doable for them, they would be in a good spot. But, the Kings, after their embarrassing loss against the Blackhawks, they're going to be looking to rebound. So it's not going to be smooth sailing for the Blues. That game they have against the Ducks is going to be critical in the wild card race. And they also have the Canucks later this month. So lots of key games for the Blues. They still have lots of time. They play the Blackhawks. They play the Kraken again. They play the Predators. They play the Habs. They play the Penguins, I think, twice. They have both their games against the Penguins coming up. So you never know. I think the Blues could be making a push for the playoffs here.
Yeah, certainly. I'm looking at the calendar in my room right now. I see the Blues have they still have the Ducks this month in March. They have the Ducks twice. They have the Predators 3 times. And they do have a matchup against the Blackhawks. They have a critical one 2 weeks from now at home against the Canucks. And yeah, this California trip, it is possible to get 6 points from it. Pittsburgh, I think, should be easy, but you can never take any opponent lightly. Minnesota, of all teams, is probably going to be the most challenging one, mainly because Minnesota's been good this year, and the Blues have not beaten Minnesota this year, which is weird to say. Blues have owned Minnesota, but this year's different. But yeah, most of the schedule, most of those games are winnable. They do have 2 against Colorado coming up, both in March and in April. Most of the games, honestly, they're winnable. The Blues do have a good chance of getting that last wildcard spot in the West. They just have to play consistently and not have a game like they did against Dallas. If they can avoid the traps that killed them against the Stars, I think they'll be good for a playoff spot.
All right, well, I'll be keeping a close eye on the Blues in the coming weeks here. Before we end this episode, I did say I wanted to talk a little bit about the Kings again, because recently they had the Skate for LA Strong charity game, and I think this was just a phenomenal thing for the Kings to do. Obviously, we've all heard about the devastating LA wildfires that happened a while back. Lots of people lost their homes, they lost their belongings, and it's stuff like this that makes hockey just such a fantastic sport. We saw a bunch of popular figures in the hockey world and beyond coming together for this charity match at the Crypto.com arena. We saw PK Subban, we saw Mark Messier, and who else was there? Justin Bieber and Snoop Dogg. And so to see this sort of like lighthearted hockey game for a good cause, it's just one of the things that makes hockey such a great sport. I think good on the Kings for this, and it's great to see how this community has come together in a time of loss.
Certainly, I'd say it's great for the LA community, for all the fans in Los Angeles, and the people of Los Angeles in general. I do admit I do not like Los Angeles, but it is great to see the community coming together and rallying around each other in the troubling times since the wildfires. So great on the Kings, and honestly, the best wishes for all of Los Angeles while they rebuild and recover from the wildfires.
All right. Well, I think that is a good note to sort of wrap this episode up with. I don't think there's anything I can say about any potential trades that I haven't already said. We will obviously be talking about any trades that happened in a future episode, but for now I think that's a good note to end things on, because I gotta edit this video and then head to bed. So is there any closing thoughts you want to leave the audience with?
Nothing really, except I expect more things to heat up probably once we stop recording, or I'd say Wednesday or Thursday, things will heat up in that last moment. But yeah, this trade deadline is either going to be what I said earlier about nothing happening, I think I kind of lied. It's either going to be a bunch of nothing or all kind of big moves are going to happen. But yeah, this trade deadline is very well going to impact the playoffs in some way. And yeah, we're looking forward to it. We can do our third video. We'll definitely assess the damages and see what all happened across the NHL landscape. But that's all I got to say for on my part. Charlie, you can close us out.
All right, well, thank you all very much for watching. We'll definitely be sharing our thoughts more as we get closer to the playoffs, the best part of the NHL season. Thank you all very much for listening in on our ramblings. Whether you're watching on YouTube, listening on Spotify, we thank you very much for tuning into this episode. I will be linking my Discord server in the description, Penguin Notes Instagram in the description, my Instagram in the description. Go check us out on all those platforms. And thank you all very much for watching, and we will see you guys in the next episode.